There is a national trace community of practice, which I think has had a couple of meetings over the last sort of a few months. And what is there that we can learn from that network in our regional approach? What is there that we can glean from your early, the first few meetings that have been there as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So just for a bit of context, our Trace National Community of Practice was set up really to bring people together, in terms of working with different sectors and different organisations. It became really clear that whilst there are distinct challenges in particular organisations or sectors in relation to embedding a trauma-informed approach in their organisations, there were actually a lot of similarities as well in terms of challenges, in terms of kind of buy-in from leadership, in terms of, the how do we do this? How do we take this toolkit and evidence what we're doing is working? So we brought together kind of people who we'd either been working with quite intensely, but also those who'd expressed an interest in our Trace toolkit and kind of, wanted us to come in and help them to start the journey. So we took the decision to kind of bring them together in this community of practice. And you talked earlier about your priorities for your social prescribing community practice. The priorities for us were really about that connection and inspiration, because we knew there were organisations out there who nobody has all of the answers, but there are some organisations with particular resources or particular skills within them that have meant that part of the journey's been easier, and they've really, really kind of grasped the task at hand in terms of that collaborative leadership or kind of baselining evidence about the why, the buy-in from senior leadership. And that was worth sharing because, we don't want people to feel alone on this journey. As I said earlier, it's never really a process of completion, which can be daunting, particularly if you're kind of trying to bring others along the journey with you in terms of measuring that immediate impact. So it can be quite a lonely position to be peddling this away in an organisation. So connecting with others on the journey felt really, really important. As you said, we've held a couple of meetings now, and they've grown every time, which is one of the, not that I'm surprised, but it's just a real sign of the appetite for this. There's not resistance to this kind of as an approach. And there's a lot of, real good practice already existing. We've been really clear that, this isn't something that's new at all in terms of, trauma-informed practice, trauma-informed approaches. And actually, there's a lot of good work out there that we absolutely want to share with people to help them to inspire to start the journey themselves. One of the things that has been most beneficial, we do check in with participants who come along to the meeting to check what they found most useful from those meetings as learning for you, and that has come through really strongly. They've appreciated hearing from others in the organisation without that kind of fear of, I'm not quite doing this right, and being able to ask those questions in a safe environment, albeit it's a large audience, but everybody comes with that same kind of empathy for each other in terms of the process that they're going through. The other thing that we're considering now, which I think what your community practice is already beginning, is to start thinking about how do we take this from the national. There's absolute role for a national space. We're a national organisation, and it's a tool that's out there for anybody. The Trace toolkit for any organisation to kind of download it and use. So there is that space for that national learning where we are really trying to highlight and identify additional tools that we can co-produce with interested parties or organisations who have a particular kind of skill for this. So we are kind of really driving home that kind of come together with us and help us to create a tool which is going to make this easier, not just for you, but other organisations who might come after you. We are thinking about how, the benefits of doing it more locally or regionally. People still want that human connection. They want to come together in person. I certainly feel it when I'm around people with like-minded people in a room. It's so energetic and it's so much more productive when you're thinking about that creative space. So that came up in our last meeting around how do we do this? Can we connect in person? And obviously as a national kind of drive, that's a real challenge to bring everybody. No location is perfect for everybody when you're thinking about an all Wales meeting. So we're really, I know you're looking to us for learning, but we're actually really looking to you as well in North Wales, not least for the amount of activity that's going on in North Wales. It really is amazing the amount of, practice in this area. but being the first kind of regional community practice on this, we are looking to you for learning that we can share back through the national community practice to be able to inspire again. How can this be taken forward in other regions, and what the benefits might be for connecting at that, you know, regional level and feeding back into the national community practice. So we're looking on, you know, keenly to how we can promote that and get others to follow suit, really.
That's brilliant, thanks, Nat. And obviously this community practice now is a lot of it's connected into the public service boards as well, and the work we do in that space across the region, and that's where I think it gets real roots, and that's where we get systems change, which is absolutely what we want to see. So on that note, I mean, it does remain to me, it's always a joy to work with you, and it's been a joy for the years that we have been working together, and it's grown amazingly, the work together that we've done. And I think so I just want to say a massive thank you from myself and the team and the university of being so open, and the partnership has been incredible, and I feel very lucky to work with you. So the final word is to you guys, really, and it's what would be your key message or ask to the audience in our community practice in the region? And we'll absolutely feedback that learning, Nat, because that's what we're all about. But a word or an ask that you want us to contemplate or consider. So I'll go to Jo first.
Okay. So I think we still have work to do in terms of who are the people that are still excluded from these conversations. How do we ensure that when we are instilling, you know, the work that we're doing, like I mentioned about the co-production, you know, that you don't lose sight of the fact that, you know, there are people who have different views, have different voices, have different experiences, and how do we create an environment that enables that? And one of the things I keep saying at the moment, it's my latest phrase. When I was in North Wales, and we did a workshop in Llandudno, and so one of the tables said to me, what we need to be doing with this is, if you're in a hospital environment, there's a lot of health people there, what we need to do is take the hospital to the community, not expect the community to come to the hospital. And I feel that a community of practice needs to kind of embrace that in some way, shape or form. So yes, it's great, we can come together, we can talk to each other. Can we do it differently? Can we find a way of getting to our communities that they want to engage in this as well, so that we get that real diverse mix of voice and experience that's not just public sector, that's not just people who do this as part of their jobs, it's not just people who are interested. Where are those people that should be interested but don't know anything about what we're doing, and how do we include and involve them in a way that's not saying you must, that's inviting them in as an equal partner and sharing that power, as Nat said before. So I think that's a challenge for all of us. We're facing that as well in terms of, you know, the real drive now from my position to think about some of the areas that we've paid less attention to. And I've talked about this a lot. I feel complicit in not understanding enough about things like racial trauma, but we don't have enough people working with us, alongside us, part of us, that are able to really explain what that means, and that's what we've got to change. It's got to be a completely diverse way of working with that ethos of co-production. But what does that really mean in terms of those marginalised groups that we keep excluding because we don't recognise or we don't understand how best to include? I was at an event yesterday where Nazir Afzal was speaking, and he said diversity is about making better decisions. And if you have people in the room that enable you to understand what the impact of some of the things that you're thinking are on them, which would be different to what they would be on you, then you're going to make a better decision. And I think that's really, really important.
That's a brilliant challenge, Jo, and well framed. We will do our best to explore that. Thank you, Jo. That's incredible. Nat, what's your reflections?
I don't know, I'm going to follow that because I just say what she said. But no, I think the other area for us that we're really keen to explore, and if there's a way of, as you said, your community practice is really grounded in the public service boards, and that kind of whole system. I'm really interested, as are we all, in how we move this beyond individual organisations or sectors and connect things, connect the dots, connect the services, so that our system, no matter where anybody tries to access a service or a community space, they are getting the same consistent kindness and compassion. How we do that seems to still be the tricky question. I think we talk about whole system approach in a lot of different spaces, but really understanding again to the roots of what that means and the impact that it can have really does remain a question for us. I think we're doing a lot of work this year. We've committed to with the steering group around impact and outcomes. What does it mean in the short, medium and long term to commit to this approach? and that whole systems question still has a big question mark for me. So how do we go and how do we connect the organisations to make that kind of seamless transition between services? How do we address some of the specific issues linked to a whole system approach? And yeah, you're in a prime position to do that, as you said, with the setup of your community practice. But as I said earlier, the appetite, particularly in North Wales, across multiple sectors, and even the community kind of interest, really does place you uniquely to, if you can, try to help us to kind of navigate some of that.
That's a challenge I'm sure we'll grapple with.